Let's talk about an issue that was just brought up today, covering the President of the United States in Santa Monica. He was at a high-tech place across campus, an incubator. The other day, the Vice President was out also talking about this issue. It deals with the minimum wage. It involves the city of LA. The mayor of Los Angeles has proposed $13.37 an hour in the next 2 years. The council has already approved I'm getting it mixed up, $15.37 for non-union hotels. Mayor wants $13.25, and there's now a discussion about the Labor Fed wants to move that up to $15.25. Some have suggested, including the chamber, that all the reports that the mayor cites and proponents cite that it doesn't cost jobs are measures of minimum wage hikes in states. Not in cities that has porous borders where you can go outside of LA to Santa Monica, et cetera. What priority would you bring to a county in the unincorporated areas where there is great jurisdiction by the Board of Supervisors of raising or having a minimum wage that's different from that of the state of California? Senator?
Well, it's interesting when you say all the data that the chamber says all the data that was cited was about states, and that they don't have porous borders. I think the people in New England would probably disagree with you, because the states of New England, when you put them all together, are smaller than the county of Los Angeles. So they do have an affect on each other. People can move and change, there's no question. You're not stuck, you know, in LA City. I mean, you can go to Pasadena, and it doesn't even take all that long. The real question is, what is the minimum wage for? What does it accomplish? Why is it a good or not a good idea? And then look at an amount. If you were to look at whether wage growth has kept up with what it costs you to buy groceries, you would find that it has not. That your prices when you go into a restaurant, not to mention a movie theater, which seems to go up 50 cents every week, wages do not keep up. So do we care whether people can afford to live or not? I think that it's a very good idea as a community for us to care. And what I would propose would be some kind of collaborative talk about what the city of LA really is going to do and whether the county can do it as well. Because the city of LA is 40% of the county. If the county in its unincorporated areas were to make partnership with the city of LA at the sort of lowest level of raise is really what, when Conan was talking about it, I think that would be very useful, because then we could say, we're moving forward together, nobody's trying to get ahead of anybody else, we're trying to raise this for everybody. How about you, Pasadena? How about you, El Monte? How about you, cities? And I think that that collaborative way is the way to do it. But I'll tell you, the minimum wage is important. People spend that money in your businesses and mine.
Mayor?
There have been studies. I've read the Berkeley study that the mayor's analysis relied on. I think it's a pretty good one. But this discussion has been going on ever since there was a minimum wage, and every time people get enough energy together to raise the minimum wage, certain groups of people say, if you do it, you know, the world will come to an end. And as we all know, the world hasn't come to an end. In fact, most of the times, if you look at the graph in the 20th century, when folks raised the minimum wage of our country, the economy boomed thereafter. So the data is pretty strong in favor of it. The thing that I would say to you about myself here is that I support it, and the chamber, who supports me, is against it. So as I said at our last debate, I hope that shows many of you that I have the capacity to say no to people who are my supporters. I think that's a very important question for you as you select one of the two of us to be your supervisors, and for that matter, as you select all the people you're voting for. Do the people have the integrity, independence, and toughness to say no to their supporters? I think it'll be a great thing. I think the way Sheila's outlined that cooperation is a perfectly great idea, but I think it'll be a great thing for our economy and our community to get this done. I would do it at $13.25. I would not get into a long debate about whether it should go to $15.25. I think we should close, so to speak, on the $13.25 right away and study further. I wouldn't like to get into a lot of studying about 1525, go for another 18 months, and then somehow lose the votes for the 1325. I think we should, there seems to be agreement on that. I think we should close that and study the 1525.
Let's move to child care. The foster system has been, an assessment of the foster system in Los Angeles County has been viewed as in a state of absolute crisis. There has been a suggestion of an Office of Child Advocacy or a Office of Child Protection. Do you endorse that? And what kind of authority do you think the Board of Supervisors should grant such an office if you do support it? Mayor, you can start us off on that.
I do support it. I think it should have as much authority as possible. It was the principal recommendation of the Blue Ribbon Commission. It's a group of civic leaders and experts who spent a long time studying this, and their number one finding was that we needed accountability in the different agencies, the so-called silo busting, or someone who can work over all the silos. We need to know who's in charge. Because what happens now is that DCFS says, oh no, that was probation. Probation says, oh no, that was mental health, and the buck gets passed around. What people want is a person to be in charge, so I'm strongly in favor of it. And for a person to be in charge, they need power to be in charge. So there's a little bit of bureaucratic backing and forthing about, well, won't that upset this person or that person? And my answer to that is, look, these are community leaders. They study this very carefully. This is their principal recommendation. You have to be for it. We'll work it out in the implementation if there's some hiccups. There are always a few little hiccups when you try something new. But the basic idea of accountability and of responsibility to the children who are dependent on this system, that there are, I think the number 7,000 kids under three in foster care tonight in LA. That's a serious responsibility of our community, and we need to make sure that that's done in a way that reflects 21st century values and our common humanity. The current system is unacceptable.
Senator?
I agree with Bobby. I think that not only should there be such an appointment, but that's a done deal. I mean, the supervisors have said that they want such a person to be appointed. They put out a job description and asked for applications. Judge Mike Nash, who was the head of the juvenile court for many, many years, as I understand, I think it's public, has applied, though he's not the only one. The question is going to be, I think, for the supervisors who have ultimate responsibility. You can't hand off ultimate responsibility. That's like saying, well, the president won't be the person responsible if the generals go to war. No, they're responsible. So I think there needs to be a bit of restructuring, because there's a siloed budget in the Department of Children and Family Services. There's a siloed budget in the camps, in juvenile justice. There's a siloed budget in education. I mean, a lot of people don't know that the county has a lot to do with early childhood education. All of the federal money runs through the county, and a lot of the tobacco tax money, LA Up, and a lot of preschool money. And we need to be able to bring much of that together in the County Department of Education as a part of this as well. Because if you can't meld some of those budgets, then this person could be appointed, but there's nothing that they can do. And they'd say, well, I can't do anything because the silos still appear. I would like it, if I'm elected, to be the hallmark of my service, that I busted silos, that I got people to work together, health and mental health and public health. Education and the Department of Children's Services, and this new person that I believe the press is calling the czar of Children's Services. I don't think that's what he or she will call themselves. So I very much favor it, and I really think the Blue Ribbon Commission did a great job.
You talked about mental health. Let's pick that up.
In terms of what I would do, I want to have more mental health counselors in the courts. People are brought in all the time, arrested, the people we were talking about. So there can be an evaluation right there in the court. I want there to be outreach workers on the street, for not just for homeless people to get them off the street, but to get them services and move them into permanent supportive housing. Supportive housing means as mental health services as well as substance abuse treatment, which is also a very important part of what's going on, I think, with our homeless population. There's also the issue of mental health services in the schools, which haven't gotten very much attention and which the county can really do something to help with. So I think there are a number of ways in which we can beef up mental health services across the lines of our other departments.
Mayor?
I think that's a really good answer. I think that the current state of the mental health department is deplorable. You have services concentrated in places. You have no services in middle schools and high schools provided by county mental health departments. Think about that. Right now, none. In the homelessness area, I think you're right about the conflation question. In homelessness, where I've spent a lot of my time, and particularly in veterans homelessness, it's very, very important to get mental health care professionals out in the street to talk to people. We hired in Santa Monica, we hired Ed Edelman, who preceded Zev in this office, and thank God has endorsed me. We hired him to come in and work with our police and the people who were feeding folks in the park to bring the feeding indoors. Because of his great dignity and integrity, he was able to do that. Why is that important? Because when you feed folks indoors, you develop a relationship with them. Mental health care workers can go up and develop a relationship. You feed them in the park, they take the sandwich, they go away, no one develops a relationship. The relationship is the key to getting them into housing. Many people won't go into housing even if you give them the apartment, so that relationship building that Ed championed in his own work and with us is a very important integral part of making this work in a broad way. I feel very, very strongly that the jail issue here is also a responsibility of the mental health department, that they have not discharged very well. There's a significant amount of money in this department, by the way, so if it were reorganized, it's within the department or folded into the health department, if that were structurally a better way to do it, I think you can have tremendous positive strides in reimagining and changing the status quo that exists now.